Hey, fifth grade, today for our poetry lesson, we're continuing to read poems in the theme or the grouping that revolves around the theme of metaphors. And of course, personification falls into that. That was one that we looked at not too long ago. Similes fall into that category too. But today we're just going to focus on a good old-fashioned metaphor, but we're going to focus on the metaphor with a little twist. Okay? So today's poem is entitled Litany by Billy Collins, and I think we'll just jump right in. Love poems are famous for their use of metaphors. There's a tradition in Western poetry that's hundreds of years old called a blazon, a poem in which the writer compares the loved one to lists of things that are beautiful or worthy or rare to demonstrate the beauty, worth, and rarity of his or her love. Billy Collins, turns the convention of the blazon on its head in his poem Litany. People use the word litany in everyday conversation to mean long, monotonous list. Here, in his litany, Collins lists ridiculous love metaphors. He begins with an epigraph that's a brief quote from someone else's writing, in this case, another poet's blazon. Then he borrows the first two lines of the other poet's poem, and then he proceeds to rewrite the rest of it. It quickly becomes clear that Collins is poking fun at the original poem, at the metaphors that categorize the qualities of a loved one, and at this whole tradition of love poetry. I think you'll see what I mean in just a moment. I'll get started, but I want to point this out once again. This is what we call an epigraph, and it's just a short quote from the beginning of someone else's work. In this case, Jacques Criquelion. And his poem starts out, "You are the bread and the knife, the crystal goblet and the wine." That's where Jacques' poem ends, and Billy Collins' version of his poem begins. Follow along with me, and try not to laugh too hard. You are the bread and the knife, the crystal goblet and the wine. You are the dew on the morning grass and the burning wheel of the sun. You are the white apron of the baker and the marsh birds suddenly in flight. However, you are not the wind in the orchard, the plums on the counter, or the house of cards, and you are certainly not the pine-scented air. There is just no way you are the pine-scented air. It is possible that you are the fish under the bridge, maybe even the pigeon on the general's head, but you are not even close to being the field of cornflowers at dusk. And a quick look in the mirror will show that you are neither the boots in the corner nor the boat asleep in its boathouse. It might interest you to know, speaking of the plentiful imagery of the world, that I am the sound of rain on the roof. I also happen to be a shooting star and the evening paper blowing down an alley, and the basket of chestnuts on the kitchen table. I am also the moon in the trees and the blind woman's teacup. But don't worry, I am not the bread and the knife. You are still the bread and the knife. You will always be the bread and the knife. Not to mention the crystal goblet and somehow the wine. All right, so when you go back into this sarcastic poem, what I want you to comment on today is the metaphors that just cracked you up, okay? I'm looking for 3 comments, and I'll move my face so we can talk about that for a minute. I'm looking for 3 comments on the metaphors that you like the most. So anytime Billy Collins is comparing his beloved, he's saying you. He's talking to the person that he loves. And anytime he's comparing himself to something, Of course, he says, I am. Okay? So when you're going in here and you're highlighting metaphors, make sure that there's a comparison between that person and then whatever it is that he's saying they are. Okay? So you're going to highlight the lines. So for me, the one that I think is hilarious is this one. It's actually two. And you are certainly not the pine-scented air. There is just no way you are the pine-scented air. This one cracks me up, okay, because this is supposed to be a love poem. And so I would highlight those by dragging my mouse across them. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add a comment. And when I add a comment, yes, I think this one's hilarious, but I need to explain why I think it's hilarious. And the reason I think it's hilarious is because I think he's basically telling this person that he's in love with that they stink. That there's no way you are the pine scented air. Because I think pine scented air smells good. And by him saying you certainly are not that, there's just no way you are that. I think he's saying that she stinks or they stink. And I don't know. It's not very romantic. So I'm going to put and I'm going to hit comment, and there it is. Okay, so I think this metaphor is hilarious because he is basically saying that his beloved stinks. Now, I know I'm going to get a message. Is it okay if I use your example? You know, if you can't find any other examples, of course, it's always okay to use my example. But in this one, there are so many funny ones. I think you can find 3 of your own. Again, I'm looking for 3 comments of the metaphors and comparisons that you think are the most hilarious. Okay? This is something you guys might try as writers. You might play around with metaphors by going over the top or by creating metaphors that either don't work or don't work the way they're supposed to for the effect of humor. You never know. There might be an opportunity for you to do this in your upcoming memoirs. All right, guys, you know what to do. I love and miss you. Please let me know if I can help you in any way. Bye.